evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Yapping with me, Saul Montes-Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information. Today, again with a good friend who's full of information, but alas, it ain't useless. So, just a couple of things to tidy up the room. We're doing this on Quadverum's channel in Odysee, in 3 timelines in Twitter. That would be mine, Quadverum's, and thanks to his boundless generosity, Thomas Wictor's. And we're also doing it in YouBoobe, because, hey, what the hell, they haven't suspended me for a while. We might as well give him a chance. And chat. If you're, writing in the chat in YouBoobe, good luck. We're not monitoring that. You have to come to Odysee. There is a link provided in the chat in YouBoobe. You have no excuse. And we do monitor, at least I do, the chat in Odysee. And you may have a chance of having your queries answered that way. Don't forget to click wherever you are on subscribe, so you get notifications when we go on the air. Click on notifications. Hey, what the heck, is free. And it's not free, but very much appreciated if you click on support and send some moolah our way. Please do not do it in YouBoobe. There are thieves. Do it in Odysee. And the same thing with super chat type of thing. If you drop a coin in the chat, don't do it in YouBoobe. They'll steal us blind. Do it in Odysee. They're far more civilized about this. And you can always come to quadverum.com/support us and support what we are trying to do here. And based on the chat, we will know if we are succeeding or not. So, without further ado, directly from Odysee, that is New Jersey, north of exit 5 in the Turnpike, none other than Ron Coleman. Hello, Ron. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. How are you this fine evening?
I'm having a good night. So far, so good. My mama is okay. My wife is not nagging. The world smiles at me.
How'd you do that?
I don't know.
Drugs?
I really don't know. If I knew how, I would probably do it more often.
You can't do that with Jane Coleman. You can't slip anything into her drinks. She's like the Princess and the Pea. Anything off, anything.
Are you sure she's not related to mine? There are. I did tell you that I knew of her uncle. That's a conversation if you want for another show, but I knew of him. I had a cousin in the same city.
Yes. Actually, it was her father's cousin. It wasn't. I was mistaken. It wasn't her uncle.
Okay, her father's cousin. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Well, her father's cousin was taken by the same a-holes who killed my cousin, and in a very dark time.
Very bad people
in Argentina. About a year later, I joined a lot of people in a prisoners camp. One is infamous. I was there for a very short time. The School of Mechanics of the Navy. They just took me there to give me a taste. And this is what we're going to do to you if you so much as piss us off.
That's right.
And then
we were just talking about that.
You were?
Jane and I.
Yes.
About how...
You know Hannah is my grandmother, right?
And Hani was her grandmother.
Yeah, there we go.
So her father's cousin was a journalist. And back, for those of you who came in late, as if we just having this conversation as if you all know what we're talking about. But Jane did tweet something brief about her father's cousin in Argentina, who was murdered by the Peronistas,
by the
and
AAA.
that's right, by the American Automobile Association, and
Yes.
no, it was the American Arbitration Association.
Yeah, you know that I can't carry a AAA car with me since.
Luckily, there are many other roadside options.
Alianza Anticomunista Argentina, made up entirely of Nazis, led by José López Rega.
In the service, however, of Marxists.
Well, in the service of General Perón, actually.
Right, but I mean, he was not exactly a rightist. He was a fascist.
He was a fascist in the purest sense of the word.
Right, a genuine fascist, which means that but in any event, in addition to killing the one cousin,
father's cousin,
he had a sister, and she was kidnapped. And we were saying, Hani was saying, this was meant to send a message. People like you. The brother was killed and the sister was kidnapped so that she would be able to go back and
tell the story.
People. That's right. And boy, is she a fangirl of the new Jefe over there.
Well, same as me. You see, the new Jefe over there. By the way, I do have, to be honest, absolutely no stake in Argentina. They can go to hell.
You have turned your back on it. I understand.
Yeah, they can go to hell in a handbasket. I wouldn't give a damn anyway. And I do think that Argentina is Dante's Inferno. I do believe that at the entrance to immigration in Ezeiza Airport, there should be a big sign, Lasciati ogni speranza voi che entrate. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. And I must confess, while I'm a little bit enthusiastic about the new Jefe, I'm not particularly convinced he will succeed.
No, I think he has taken on a tremendous uphill.
Oh God, he's trying to move Mount Everest,
and he doesn't even have a majority or anything close to it.
No, not even close to it. And even the people who voted for him didn't do it out of loyalty to him or his ideas, but out of spite for the other Maroons. So once that the other Maroons are removed, it is a big question whether they have any loyalty for him at all.
Yep. So, democracy is a sloppy business.
Yes, it is. The worst system, according to Churchill. Yes.
Except for all the other ones.
Except for all the others, yes, indeed. That's how that one is completed. But and it all depends on what democracy is. You know that the dictionary definition of democracy varies greatly from one language to another.
Yeah. So now, how many people in the comments are going to know? It's not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic.
Oh God! Like
please.
I'm not a human being. I'm a developed ape.
Yes, we understand. It is not a pure democracy. Everyone doesn't.
That's a good subject, by the way. That's a good subject since you bring it up. Because for years I've been arguing with the "it's not a democracy, it's a republic" crowd. And I failed to see the dichotomy. It's not a cat. It's a horse. No, they're not even felines.
It's called semantics. It's people are playing semantics.
Yes. But, you have a more developed notion on this, I believe, than I do. But to me, a republic is just a country where a country ruled by a government that is not hereditary. It's not a monarchy. It's not a satrapy. Period. End of story. And
Well, I will tell you. I'll
yeah,
tell you a little secret. I'm not sure how I should. What's the best way to share it? I'm going to put it in the comments in the link. I wrote an article on this very topic
mm,
4 years ago, almost to the date. In Human Events, back when Will Chamberlain was running it, and it wasn't quite so greasy, and before Jack Posobiec got involved. It's a different topic for a different day, but I don't know if that showed up anywhere. You probably have more control over this, so I'm going to put it in the link in the private chat. But it's something that I have thought about. Yes, I have. But it's boring.
heavily Human Events.
Yeah.
Okay, let me put it in the chat. And a little reminder, because I see a lot of people are active on YouTube. So once again, we're not reading those, and please don't put money in there. YouTube keeps 45% of that money. You make an effort, and they grab it. If you're gonna put a buck at all,
you sound
do
like
it
a
in
communist
Odysee.
now. You sound like a communist.
No, I'm a capitalist. I want it all. I don't want to share. Do you want to share?
But the point is, but YouTube has set up the capital. They
yeah. So has Odysee.
Right. Okay. Except Odysee, I got to tell you, I joined Odysee because I wanted to impress you, and it's I love the platform. I mean, compared to Rumble, which is in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
I mean, it is cool, but this whole thing with the crypto, you can't edit things until you put money in, and you have to earn, and it's this whole casino atmosphere. Can't I just put my videos in?
Yeah, and well, what they don't want is at the very beginning people to come in and start loading the system with crap. After they take a little while, they load it with crap anyway. You know what happens. But it is. I think it's not that bad. They gave me the LTC, the library coins, sufficient to start. Over time, as you publish videos and watch videos, that amount increases. So now I'm rich. I have about 1,600 library coins, which converted to dollars is something like 20 cents. But it allows me to kind of like boost videos and put them to the front of the line.
Yeah,
and that's about it. You get used to it. It's no big deal.
I'm sure. I'm lazy. I don't have the patience to.
I publish videos with 0.01 library coins. Not a lot.
I will tell you that I like
it. No, and by the way, whatever idea they had at the beginning, it didn't quite work, and it is kind of childish.
Yeah, and I think that's also true for Rumble. I remember when I first started using Rumble, it was like, this video has so many 14 rumbles. What? I don't want to rumble. I don't want to have I'm supposed to have a fight, a gang fight with someone or something.
Rumble in the jungle. Like I mean it. Go to the jungle and rumble there.
I mean, I saw Jethro Tull live in the late 70s in Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
I'm sure actually that if we had Thomas here, he would have that conversation with me.
Well, you know that can be arranged, my friend.
I would love to have a chat with Thomas.
You already have a beard, which qualifies you to the beard bladder.
Right, and I didn't always,
Yeah, I already had a conversation with Thomas to that effect, and he'll be more than happy to have you join us.
That's great.
Now the live thing,
the beard show, right? Oh yeah, there are two.
Yeah. The live thing starts at 11 p.m. Eastern, which is kind of late.
It's kind of late, but
But it is after the Shabbat.
Oh, it's on Saturday night. That's what it is.
It is Saturday, 11 p.m.
So after my son's wedding at the end of the month, we'll set up a date.
Okay. That'll be interesting. Anyway, so enough of Argentina and all that crap. No, not enough. There are a couple of things. These savages. Your father-in-law's cousin was a radio journalist. He was, a guy who read the news, talked. By any standard, plain vanilla. I mean, it's not like he was a rabble rouser or anything of the sort.
Right. He was a he did his job. I mean, it's true in those days, non-government media was a little bit more oriented to challenging governments. And now they're all captured by governments.
Yeah,
but he wasn't a muckraker.
Yeah, no, he wasn't a muckraker. He was not.
He was a Goldberg, and if he was a Goldberg, I know that he was not a troublemaker.
Fairly moderate just to begin with. And my cousin, on the other hand, it was definitely. I have another cousin. She was guilty of being young, and she had to endure 2 years of torture and 4 more years in a penal colony. And when I think about that, when I go back to those days, and I see some arguments going on in the U.S. today, I want to jump through the screen, grab them by the neck, slap them, and say, "Do you have any idea what the crap you're talking about, moron?" And I don't think they do.
No, they don't. People don't. But you know what? Also, Saul, we've reached a point where it really doesn't matter. I mean, we're in an era now where the president of the United States is not expected to actually take questions at anything remotely resembling what, for our entire lifetimes, what's called a press conference. Other than from pre-positioned lackeys who are given the questions to ask. I mean, it's all performative, and all these, all these democracy dies in darkness, social justice warriors, all quiet. They've got nothing to say about it.
No,
so I mean, it's a whole new world. It is a world in which, every kind of, well, not every kind, but there's justification for a great deal of subversive thinking and activity. But I'm not recommending anyone, of course, as a member of the bar.
No, I can understand. I mean, who likes an administration who bends over backwards for America's enemies? And I'm not saying this lightly.
Terrible.
Abandons or pressures our friends. We pressure Israel to bend over and grab its ankles. We pressure Saudi Arabia to stop bombing the Houthis, who we take out of the terrorist list because they are so nice. This is the new and improved, kinder and gentler Houthis, and they're no longer associated with Iran. And we pour money, poor taxpayers' money, on the Palestinian Authority, on Hamas, on UNRWA, on the Houthis, on Iran, and then we're all surprised what it is that they actually do with that money.
But again, I mean, really, it doesn't even matter. I mean, you and I can sit here and the 32 people who are going to watch this, we can all nod our heads.
It was a bigger number last time, baby.
We can all have our opinions about this. We're no longer in a deliberative modality where people are inquiring, where there's give and take, where policy, I mean, they just do what they want. We have no idea who's really in charge.
No.
They hire utterly unqualified people to be spokesmen who simply read, like there's nothing too dumb. There's nothing too dumb for them to say publicly. And they get
And the only reason they hire morons and spokesmen is so they don't crack up laughing when they read that crap.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because anybody with a half a brain would probably need an oxygen tent after reading one of the statements in the press office. It's ridiculous.
Anyway,
Yeah.
you can listen. We have to just keep fighting the good fight. I ask people, whenever I have them on my show, what a lot of times it's people who write about this problem or that problem, and I say, well, okay, well, you've been thinking about this. People are always asking me, so I'll ask you, what should we be doing? What can we do? What's the answer? And it's usually some variation of, we got to keep fighting the good fight. As long as we can, I guess we have to. So we will.
I think that we should resort to the last defense of rationality, laughter. We do not ridicule these people enough. We take every moronic statement seriously and argue the point, thereby legitimizing it, when what we should be doing is laughing our hearts out. Did you hear the last stupid thing these morons said? Wah, wah, wah. Because if you go, oh my God, he's trying to do this. It doesn't do anything.
You can't fret about it. That's right. It doesn't do anything. And laughter does have the advantage of, first of all, it's physiologically healthy. It helps you dispense with some of the tension and stress that's built up from living in this world. Look, it's very good if you and I are seasoned citizens, as Rush Oliver
You mean all farts
used to say, right? So we know how little there is, how little use there is to yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
And, you have to play your game and hope that, as you said, rationality shines some light on what's going on around us. And, then you do have these sort of black swan events where someone, if things look utterly hopeless, and then someone like Elon Musk comes along and spends, a massive amount of personal wealth, money that the system has decided he's never going to be allowed to have again, as we learned in the Delaware courts earlier this week.
And for those of you who weren't paying attention, the Delaware court just decided that his severance package in Tesla is not to be, which is
unbelievable.
The one thing that I did not see in all the commentary around it is how unbelievably fascist that is. As far as I'm concerned, if the shareholders of Company A vote to pay the CEO of Company A whatever crap they want, it's their business. It's not the government's. It's not mine, unless I happen to be a shareholder and then I voted, and I have to accept what the majority of shareholders say. What is this notion that the government or the courts, for that matter, can dictate what a shareholder can or cannot do with his company?
There is a concept called the business judgment rule. And it's developed most thoroughly in the law of Delaware, because that's where so many corporations have their homes. And it says that, as you're saying, the people who run the company, who are lawfully in charge of making the decisions and who report to a board of directors, which in turn reports to its shareholders, are given a great deal of leeway in making management decisions, spending company money and everything. But that there is a point at which something is so beyond the pale that they're considered to have violated their fiduciary duties as...
Right. But what if the shareholders vote for it?
Listen, from everyone who understands corporate law, I think understands that this decision was a very, very poor one by a very, very political chancellor.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how it's going to be. I mean, someone made a very good point today. We're talking about Delaware. This is Biden country.
Oh yeah,
these are his crooks.
True.
I mean, it is going to be appealed.
No wonder Elon Musk is now calling for people to register elsewhere and not in Delaware. I could have told him that. Frankly, Florida is a much better residence for a corporation, assuming you have a mouse to stand on.
Assuming you have what to stand on?
A mouse to stand on, because...
A mouse? Why a mouse? Oh, in Florida.
Well, right, because if you don't have a mouse to stand on, you're going to have your case dismissed.
Yes, you'll be up Reedy Creek without a paddle.
Yep. So, I think Florida is a much better place to do business, corporate law-wise, than Delaware. Now, am I right?
So what happened? Right. I mean, Delaware, during the 20th century and in the late 19th century, as corporate law became more sophisticated, and as the Industrial Revolution ramped up, different states competed with each other in what my law professor called the race to the bottom.
Yep.
To see who could offer the least regulation of corporations that were incorporated in their states. Why would they do that? So that maybe, even though in those days it was less common to incorporate in a place that was different from where you did business.
Yep.
But also there would still be franchise taxes and other. It was a way for states to raise money, and for a couple of generations, the world sort of settled in, certainly after World War II, to Delaware being this really ideal compromise. It wasn't California or Michigan or New York where there were these particular vested interests. It just became sort of this corporate haven. And they had this court of chancery that was specialized in dealing with these shareholder cases, and really high quality, sophisticated lawyers found themselves practicing there, doing this, high level corporate law work, and
providing a headquarters address to a host of companies.
Right, exactly. And now, they ruin everything. They ruin everything they touch. There's simply too much. There's too much law. On the other hand, it was a good decision. That Disney decision was an entirely correct decision. It was one that I had been my friend Andrew Esquire, who happens to not only be a prominent legal YouTuber, but someone whose professional practice for many, many years focused on these tax district issues. And once I came to understand from interviewing him as a guest on my podcast, and also watching him discuss it with other cats, that Disney was getting away with murder for decades. They had an incredibly sweet deal. And yes, it is almost certainly the case that the sweet deal came to an end when Disney decided to poke the bear. But that doesn't mean that by virtue of you're antagonizing the governor doesn't give you legal rights you otherwise wouldn't have had.
Exactly.
Which is what they're essentially arguing. And of course, one of the most important points that was in that decision that came down was actually yesterday.
Yes.
Was, hey, Disney, you don't even have standing. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Why are this case? You're
that was the second dismissal, because it was a dismissal, but they gave two reasons, and the second one is you lack standing.
You
But
lack standing, and the other defendants who do have standing, there's no First Amendment issue here. This is
no,
not a speech issue. It was cockamamie. I mean,
no. Maybe I'm way off the mark, but I said, it is as if I go out there on April 15th and say I'm not paying my taxes because they have no right to collect taxes from me. Because collecting taxes from me is an infringement of my First Amendment rights because I expressed myself by not paying taxes. That doesn't make it a First Amendment case any more than Disney's. And you stated it clearly. Oh, we lost. Oh, there we go. Did I scare you or the internet?
no, it was the Peronistas.
Ah, damn. The thing is, you put me up to it some time ago, and then your friend you just mentioned, he has a video where he explains this in a way that even Bernie Sanders can understand if he's listening. Not a small feat, mind you. And to me it was clear, and I always had the impression that the Reedy Creek, the moment that Disney failed to develop a city, they lost any claim to it.
Right.
Because
But no one wanted to notice, and of course, I'm sure they made it worthwhile for what was for until the last couple of decades, sleepy Florida. It worked out for everyone really because
yeah,
Disney was putting money into it that it might not have put into it, and there's no question that Disney was earned the right to the opportunity
yeah,
to make investments in areas where no one else was making investments. But the idea that they became de facto, corporate
a
owners, talk
fiefdom.
about fascism, corporate owners of a municipality.
Yeah, a
And then they
fiefdom.
had the audacity to say, "Hi, we're Disney, and we're going to sue you for depriving us of our fiefdom."
Yeah, I don't think people understand, but Disney was paying taxes to itself.
Right?
It's like,
And I don't
never
know if you saw
mind. Right, never
they
mind the counties they're on who didn't benefit an iota from Disney's activities, though they had expenses. Because you might say, well, they're doing this in Disney with their own things. Why should they pay taxes to the counties? Because the counties were paying for the roads to get there, for the airports, for the bus stations, for the infrastructure, and they were getting diddle crap. So they have to finance with taxpayers' money the structure needed for Disney to bring tourists to their locale. And Disney then would pay a tax to itself, call it a day, and go fornicate a mouse.
and meanwhile they spent money. The municipality spent money directly to benefit Disney, and you had to get you didn't if you worked for Reedy Creek, you didn't have to get approval for expenses until you hit $100,000.
Right.
That's like working for FTX
That's like working for Biden.
or Ukraine.
Go forth, my son. Take a trip to the island. You don't even have to declare it. We'll refund you. It's nonsense. And the more I read into it, the more ridiculous it becomes to me. It may have sounded like a good idea in '67.
What is interesting is that this obviously began to really grow through the Katzenberg.
Katzenberg, yeah.
Yeah, and then like, what would you do if you became CEO of Disney 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you sit down, and the different division heads are, reporting to you and say, so here's how it's been going at Reedy Creek for the last, 5 years. Here's what we've got it. Here's how we're working it now. You say, oh gosh, this is patently illegal. This is a how do you back out of that? How do you I'm not saying that these people aren't to blame, but I think that it did incremental, like every time they pushed for more control and more financial benefit directly to Disney, there was no pushback, there was no oversight, there was no auditing, and they kept pushing and taking. This is, so where Andrew believes, he said yesterday on his stream, reading, when you're going through the opinion, he said, I guarantee you, he really called a shot like Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
I guarantee you there will be criminal charges. And people, when I've spoken to my Disney friends, WDW Pro and of course Valiant Renegade, and I don't know if we still have Jonas J. Campbell here. I doubt that. He's probably going to get his car from the pound. But people, gee, Ron, you're the lawyer. Do you think anyone's going to get charged for this Disney thing? And I said I probably think they will, but there's so little accountability for people at the top, unless they're Republicans or connected with Donald Trump in some way. Yes, it has been a newsworthy week.
Yes, I for once, well, no, I must confess, I will probably lose another 1,000 followers on this one, but I don't care. I have no idea how many of my followers I blocked last week.
You have to live that way, Saul. There's no other way to live.
No. I blocked a gazillion followers last week. Now there is one that is beginning to pester me because I have this allergy, and it's a severe allergy, to people who mix religion and politics. It gives me the jeebies. So the moment they start pushing some kind of politicized religion or spiritualized politics, I get kind of like an eczema. Then I start having trouble breathing, and then I block them.
What drama?
Yeah, no, I learned from my daughter. But it's I cannot over dramatize the pain in the nuts that I get with these people.
Well, be more specific. Don't be such a what is it?
Well, anybody who comes to me with Christian nationalism or Catholic nationalism, I see the same as I see the mullahs. To me, they're nothing but a mullah with a cross. And if it happens to be one of these guys, let me put him back here. I'm okay with them until they want to impose their shit through City Hall.
Well,
I don't like religious parties of any color.
Well, listen, look, it has no place in American politics. It really doesn't work. Although, again, if someone wants to look, if people want to group themselves around a religious ideal, they're entitled to do that, but they just have to understand that people who don't share that religion aren't necessarily going to be receptive to it. And it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. We, as you said, we know that in fact, I had this discussion with Michael Knowles. I said, how are we going to decide, Michael, you're Catholic, how are we going to decide that Satanists can or can't have a flag at City Hall in Boston, compared to other, and he said, why not go back to the founding fathers and ask, what would they have, what, when they were talking about Congress shall make no law respecting, religion, do you think any of them for a second? I mean, they didn't even think that applied to atheism. He says it's not a matter. He says these were people were not
Well, I don't know.
particularly
There is a
religious.
letter from George Washington to Tank Tillman that would argue otherwise.
Yes, that he wrote to the Newport congregation.
No. Not to the Newport congregation. He was asking Tank to send them workers.
I'm sorry, he was asking who?
Tank Tillman,
Oh, okay.
a friend of his. And he says, if they be good workmen, let them be Christians of any sect. Let them be Muslims. That's the way he wrote it. Sorry about that.
That's what they used to call Muslims. Yeah.
Muslims, or let them be atheists. If they be good workmen. So his litmus test was not the religion of the candidate, but his ability to perform the task at hand. And that tells you a lot about how he saw these things.
Listen, Washington doesn't really get enough credit as a thinker. I know that there has been a little bit of a movement to sort of knock him off his pedestal as well, because that's always the move, of course.
Over my dead body.
And they took Jefferson's statue out of New York City's.
I think they did him a favor, because if he had seen what New York City Hall has become,
right,
he would probably run all the way back to Monticello, burn it down, and move to England.
Right.
I think that anytime now they're going to get Nathan Hale out of the Nathan Hale is right across in front of the steps to City Hall, and he must be so uncomfortable there. He gets a full view of who gets in or out, and he's probably thinking, and I got myself killed for this.
They really did their best. They did their best, and they did very well.
Yes.
But they didn't Washington said this whole system is premised on people believing in God. And in other words, people having basically a
moral foundation.
A moral foundation that we can recognize. I mean, there are multiple levels to that, right?
Yeah.
All the way at the bottom of this, we have this gigantic movement towards nihilism, which is the antithesis of a moral foundation.
Yes.
But we have to reckon again with something we thought that we wouldn't have to reckon with, which is Islam, which absolutely has a moral foundation, which absolutely has an internally fairly consistent. I mean, there are strains within Islam, but most Muslims...
There are as many sects within Islam as there are within Christianity, and probably not as many as there are within Judaism.
That is probably right, but they do tend to... They act out in a way that Christians haven't acted out with each other, not counting Northern Ireland.
Yeah, or Jim Jones.
Time. What's that?
Or Jim Jones.
Yeah, well, I mean, now we're talking, bona fide lunatics. Hey, I just want to say hi to some of the people in the chat there, because
you're viewing the chat in Odysee or
in YouTube. No, I haven't figured out how to stream in Odysee, and I don't really see a real reason for me to do. I did have it was a very big week for me because I cracked 10,000 on YouTube. And it was very embarrassing for me that I couldn't get to 10,000. I think that the stream that we did really helped kick that up there. I understand from every day that there are 4 main schools of Islamic jurisprudence in the chat, and I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I'm
There are many more.
more
There
than
are many
4.
more. Sharia is mostly founded on uh, the nation tribe. In just about every country that practices Islam, there is a different version of Sharia. It's not the same thing in Nigeria as it is in Afghanistan. It's not the same thing
And
in Iraq as it is in Indonesia. It's completely
this is
different.
and are those different schools of
Yes,
jurisprudence, do they track in any way the Sunni and Shia split, or is that a
there's
completely
more than Sunni and Shia split.
so say? But the point is that Sunni and Shia would be examples, would be streams within.
Those are theological streams. Sharia doesn't have much to do with either. In Nigeria, there is, and it's funny we should be speaking of this in the context of America today, female genital mutilation. It actually precedes Islam. And it was practiced long before the arrival of Islam in those areas. It is considered a crime in most of Islam. It was practiced by some tribes in Nigeria and by some tribes in the Amazon, actually. No relationship that we know of. Now, of course, it's practiced in Massachusetts General Hospital because we have gone, let's say, to great lengths to screw this up. But I remember when everybody was accusing Islam of promoting female genital mutilation, and that was simply untrue.
Well,
And
so listen.
that's when I started looking into this.
And in fact, when I talk about when I what I was talking about a minute ago, we have been exposed to this African Islam, which is indeed quite, I think, different from the Arab Islam that we had been encountering, Arab and Persian, Middle Eastern as opposed to African. And I think that what we have seen in terms of immigrants from African Islamic countries has been a massive cultural shock in the West, in Europe, in Western Europe, and in the United States, and nobody wants to reckon with it because it's considered to be to have the discussion is to admit of an inclination to be religiously discriminatory. But I don't think the founding fathers or George, when Washington said this is for a nation of believers,
yes,
he notwithstanding what he wrote to his friend in the letter about getting the job done, he didn't contemplate the kind of,
no, he wasn't talking about Catholics either.
He certainly wasn't. But we had the Catholics discussion on our last stream.
Yeah, well, no, but this is in Washington's context. It's a very difficult thing because I believe few people have been condemning terrorism in all of its forms as I have for the past 40 years. I don't think it's an Islam problem. I think it's an ideological problem. It's not a religious problem at all.
Right. So right. So that is really the news story of our moment, which is that common cause has been made by two groups who, if they were to get their way, would undoubtedly be at each other's throats, which is Marxists and Muslims.
Isn't that interesting?
Although, and by Marxists I mean the very, the whole nihilist.
The very broad collectivists. But the thing is that remember how the Soviet Union supported, empowered, and virtually created the Palestinian movement, which was supported by Hitler before that as the Arab Palestinian movement. This association goes back to the beginning of these problems. And they have a lot in common. Now, I agree, it's like Hitler joining the communists only to end up at each other's throat. In the end, they will. But they will when it's time to partition the spoils. Because in the meantime, like Johann von Leers, and I use the word with misgivings, was an intellectual of Nazism. Misgivings because I hesitate to put intellectual and Nazism in the same page.
Yes, but because at its core, it was an anti-intellectual movement.
Exactly.
And despised intellectualism.
But von Leers is the guy who wrote 53 books on the ideology of National Socialism. He ended up in Argentina as Perón's protege, but in 1953 he moved to Cairo.
Yes.
In his letter, in his goodbye letter to the Nazi community of Argentina, a very large one, I might add, he says that the deposition of General Perón by the Revolution of 55 has made our dreams of a Reich unattainable here. And therefore, I am moving to Cairo, the epicenter of a wave of green flags from Morocco to Baghdad, fighting against colonialism, imperialism, and for social justice, which represents our only hope to restore the Reich. Boy, was he right.
I'm sorry, what?
Boy, was he right.
Yeah, right.
Osama bin Laden's fatwa against the U.S. is a tirade against imperialism and a call for social justice that would make Ocasio-Cortez sound tame in comparison.
So that what you're saying is an articulate and well-informed version of what I said 5 minutes ago, with lots of fine detail, which is that there is an alliance of convenience now.
Yep.
That it's the people who want to destroy this civilization versus
absolutely yes,
people who have different ideas of what to do with the remains. And the irony is, I mean, it's a cliche. Please forgive me, people. I'm going to say, look, there have been cliches in this.
Ego te absolvo.
I'll hate. Liberalism is premised on tolerance, on pluralism, but what people didn't understand, and what as was just pointed out by aka Batusai in the YouTube comments, is that the premise was that we're going to be tolerant, we're going to be pluralistic, we're going to have that big tent, but we're all operating under the same moral framework.
Yes. And
I know Jewish people who don't like the term Judeo-Christian, and I know Christian people who don't like the term Judeo-Christian because there is a disconnect, obviously, between Judaism and Christianity.
At one point in history.
But the point is,
Hmm.
compared to almost everyone else in the world, we are basically sharing the same values of how to go about setting up a society. I'm not talking. Don't give me talk about the Crusades. I'm not talking about. Okay, it's
No,
not
no, please don't.
1350.
I have enough idiots come to me with a 1400-year-old war.
It's the 21st century,
Yes.
and really, but we were doing so well. We were doing so well, and it's really something else, Saul. But at
Were
least
we?
we won a case against Disney this week.
Well,
For
baby
the
steps.
lines of the ridiculous.
Baby steps. In order to catch a big lion, you start with a small mouse. Or something to that effect. No, it's what you're talking about is something that's it's not the one thing that keeps me awake, but it's the one thing I think about when I am kept awake. One thing we cannot forget is that the primary target of Islamic National Socialism is not us, it's other Muslims. Hundreds of thousands have died in the past 10 years alone. While the left in Europe and the US talk about genocide, because we killed 8,000 Hamas asshats, 500,000 were killed in Syria, way over 300,000 in Iraq. Nobody's counting the Muslims murdered by the Chinese.
Nope.
If
the Jews didn't do it, no one gives a crap.
Nobody gives a shit.
Or the Americans.
So whether it is, in Western China or in Syria or in Libya or in Iraq, hundreds of thousands of Muslims who died fighting with us against ISIS and Al Qaeda. Nobody counts them. And we cannot win this battle without them. So I always think that people who generalize about Islam and put in the same position the terrorists of Al Qaeda, ISIS, or Damascus with the hundreds of thousands who fought and are fighting alongside us, the 2 million Arab Muslim Israelis. A general condemnation of Islam condemns the Muslim Bedouins fighting in the IDF. I think it's a grotesque injustice.
And it's one you make a very good and important point, and it's also an injustice that, to a large extent, Muslims, understandably, have some responsibility for, because they have been reluctant to break ranks. But there is, and of course, there's apparently there are a number of there's a growing consensus in the Arab Muslim world that it's time to stop playing footsie with Hamas, because they're nihilists. There's nothing's good enough for them, and they will ruin everything.
I think you're too generous with them.
But now we have this, rumors that the British are about to recognize a Palestinian state, and Biden threw up Biden's people threw up some kind of flag. What is it called? What's the what's the cliche they say? Threw up a flag.
Not a tantrum.
What is it?
Not a tantrum.
No, not a tantrum. They in order to see what kind of reaction there would be to the U.S.
Oh, a trial balloon.
A trial balloon, yeah, not a flag, trial balloon. I mean, everything. It's amazing how Western governments, and most Western governments, have been so resolute in doing the wrong thing and reacting the wrong way on incentives, given any opportunity they have, with exceptions this time around, like oddly enough, Germany. The Germans have been
oddly enough.
Really
I'm waiting
good.
for the other shoe to drop. The thing is this, and we have to understand this, and it has definitely something to do with Jews, but not exclusively. European social democracy is fundamentally anti-Semitic, collectivist. I tend to say sometimes that the Nazis managed to get with the euro what they couldn't accomplish with the Panzer. All of these virulently anti-Semitic Europeans, France, to a lesser degree Italy, definitely Austria. Don't get me started with Eastern Europe. Are also collectivists, anti-capitalist, I would say anti-liberty with a capital L. We have them in the US as well. And that's, you can see the results in our universities, in our State Department. It doesn't surprise me at all that ideas coming out of the State Department almost invariably are injurious to Israel. And I think it's by design.
Really?
Yes. Like I said, social democrats are intrinsically, viscerally anti-Semitic.
Yeah, for sure.
And they don't need to be Muslim, to do that. They're worse. I think Israel is in better hands with Saudi Arabia than with the American State Department today.
Yeah, and people are refuse to acknowledge the difference between Saudi Arabia today and Saudi Arabia in 1984.
Yes. They refuse to see the changes, and they're dramatic. So, we look at these things, and we see how averse these people are to any sort of liberty in the American sense, not in the French sense. This you can trace back to the French Involution. It led to very bitter disputes between Adams and Jefferson, and Adams was right. And Jefferson had to admit it.
Jefferson was willing, and he really did set a pattern for modern liberals, willing to overlook the nihilism inherent in what, as Lenin formulated it, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Mm-hmm. He was willing to overlook the reign of terror.
Right.
And he thought that the French Involution was a projection of the American Revolution. He was wrong. It's a different monster.
Yeah, there's really no comparison.
Though it started as such.
Yeah, right. For 10 minutes.
Yes, for about 10 minutes. When Lafayette convinced the king to call the estates, and the king named Lafayette, the hero of the American Revolution, as the commander of the royal forces to ensure the peace during the process. And eventually there was a counter-revolution. Lafayette ended up in exile in Austria and was jailed.
Yeah.
Thomas Paine ended up condemned to the guillotine.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Robespierre kicking the bucket fortuitously,
he was kicked into the bucket.
he was kicked into the bucket, and Thomas Paine's friends managed to spring him out during the confusion that followed. Some people say he was sprung out of the Bastille, forgetting that the Bastille had already been burnt. It's that would have been a sight to see. But when the French Revolution calls for liberté, égalité, et fraternité, it sounds pretty much like liberty, equality, and
right. It's a good, nice list. Sure,
except that our equality is equality before the law. Their equality refers probably more to the size of the dick. If yours is longer, we need to cut it to size. Or put it more seriously, they speak of equality of means, and we speak of equality of opportunity. Big freaking difference. We have let
that distinction absolutely get lost. Absolutely get lost. And our government and our leaders and our judiciary and our academia, all the elite institutions have bought into it, and it's
you say, how do we guarantee freedom of religion? You know what the French did in 2000?
In 2000?
In 2000, they passed a beautiful law, the sects law, which prohibits the practice and ritual of sects within the territory of, not sex, mind you, that one is still free. Sects.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about France, after all.
Yes. And it prohibits the practice and rituals of sects within the territory of France. Now, what the crap is a sect? You, having an inquiring mind, may ask. How does the French government determine what is a sect and what isn't?
To which the French government says, I don't know, but we're not going to despair of trying.
The Minister of Interior is the one that says, from now on, you're a fucking sect.
Look, it's a problem. It's a problem because, then you're ultimately giving the power to the state, which is
what the French have been doing all along.
Well, that's right. Look, we talk about freedom of speech, which is much, that's my topic, right?
Yes.
So, I've had a couple of people from the UK as guests on my program, and we have talked about, they don't have a First Amendment in the United Kingdom, and they have had some
nowhere in Europe for that matter.
Right. We're really pretty much anywhere. And they have more of a problem with censorship and people literally being arrested. I mean, one of my guests was Count Dankula.
You can be jailed in most of Europe for the utterance of one word.
Right. Now, that, we can see the problem. We can see the problem with that. But having said that, and I'm not suggesting that therefore I want to be like them, but I'm just saying, when you're looking about how to set up your society, at the end of the day, just how much has the United Kingdom suffered from a lack of freedom of expression in the last 100 years? Probably not really so much. I don't know. I don't, maybe someone has done that study. I myself don't, I don't know. We're living in such an open system.
Yeah, but I think the question is upside down, is a proving of the negative.
Say it again?
You can never prove the negative.
Yes. Well, right, of course.
Now, and it's not fair to say that there is no freedom of speech in
No.
England, because to a great degree there is.
Well, that's
There
exactly
are
what I'm
specific
saying.
areas where you cannot venture. I mean,
But of course, what happened is that once the intersect, you might ask, why do freedom of religion and freedom of speech live together in the First Amendment? Why shouldn't they be two separate amendments?
because it's freedom of conscience, both of them.
That's right. And what happened in the UK was that you started getting, now that Christianity is really largely out of style in the United Kingdom.
Mhm.
It started becoming offensive to certain judges for people to express or advocate a Christian point of view, which is not a liberal point of view,
Hmm.
and which tends to actually be illiberal in many important respects. And they, as judges, who are going to, and there's no constitution, there's no written constitution at all in the UK. So they will decide based on their internal feelings, like so many of our judges do now.
Pure jurisprudence.
What's that?
Purely on jurisprudence.
Pure jurisprudence. Traveling through jurisprudential space. They'll decide what is nice and what is inappropriate. And these are hard questions, but as long as we're struggling with them, there is some hope.
Yep.
And we are. And to go back to the beginning of our discussion, in Argentina, at least they're struggling with important questions also. I mean, for all the unhappiness that a person can quite reasonably have with democracy, it is possible for a democratic system to get fed up before it actually collapses on itself. Now, that might be too late. It might be that Argentina is going to collapse on itself, and it's hard not to see the American system collapsing on itself, because no one who should know better and is in a position of power, when I say no one, I see hardly anyone, is willing to stand up and defend first principles and to insist on standards being upheld, and
listen, you can have the Hildebeest come out on all media this past week, warning Americans that the extreme right wing, remember the vast right wing conspiracy of 1996? Now we have an extreme right wing conspiracy. I mean, she plagiarizes herself.
a thief is a thief.
Yeah, God. A vast right wing conspiracy that is going to steal the 2024 elections. Now, if you say beep about 2020 being stolen, you're a seditious asshat and you belong in solitary confinement. But if you're the Hildebeest warning Americans that 2024 will be stolen by a right-wing conspiracy, and that 2016 was stolen by Putin, then you are a patriot and a Democrat. The level of bullshit is, it's reaching the stars now. It's left the Earth atmosphere. And while we are engaged in these sterile discussions, at what point criticizing an election becomes a critic of democracy? Or like the satrap they have in Spain, that clearly stated that whoever criticizes him is attacking democracy, which reminds me of Louis XIV, l'état, c'est moi, and goodbye.
And if you're criticizing Dr. Fauci, you're criticizing science.
Right. You're criticizing science.
Which is heresy, because that is our God, after all.
Yes. And this whole thing is taking us to a level of ridiculousness where people have been distracted from real issues, like the having turned democracy into a form of superstition. There is a reason why our founding fathers did not make voting compulsory. It was a citizen's duty to vote, but not an obligation. Because frankly, if you don't have the interest of getting your ass out of the coach, drop the Cheetos for 2 seconds, go to a courthouse and register to vote, it's because you're not paying that much attention to begin with, and we're better off if you stay home eating Cheetos that day.
To which one of the political parties says, and that's the guy whose vote I want. The low information vote, the lowest possible.
He has to be registered to vote automatically when he buys toilet paper. And there is a second one too that I find to be incredibly more dangerous for us. When that Cheeto eating uninformed blob is registered to vote when he buys toilet paper, that means that whether he votes, and by the way, and then you legalize absentee ballots with no reason or excuse.
Yeah.
That means that anybody can fill that ballot. And he will vote whether he wants to or not. And we have had jurisdictions in the U.S. in the last election and in 2020 with a better participation rate than Baghdad under Saddam Hussein or Castro's Havana. I don't believe it. Jail me if they must, and I will go to jail skipping and singing and saying thievery. There is no other purpose for absentee ballot in this context than to commit fraud.
And this was acknowledged in that special committee that they set up, what was it, 20 years ago, to deal with
2005, even back in the days when Jimmy Carter thought that absentee ballot was nothing but the mother of fraud. And it hasn't changed. And there is nothing, by the way, even they tell you, we're guaranteeing because it's a signature, like they can certify 120 million signatures in a couple of days. Yeah, sure.
Ridiculous. That's right.
Even if they could, I'll give it. I feel in a generous way. I'll give to the Democrats the notion that they can certify that vote came from a voter and the voter signature is legitimate. Who was with him when he voted? How do you prove to me that there is no coaction?
Of course not.
How can you prove to me that all those wonderful people in hospices in Florida in a deep coma came back and were awake long enough to sign their voting, their ballots, and then went back into a coma? It's impossible. It cannot be done.
No, that's right.
Well, but they must put a copy of their ID.
No other country that claims to be a democracy in the world has such a preposterous system.
No, it is absurd, and it is guaranteed to be fraudulent.
And that's a good thing.
Apparently, because that's the only way some people can win in this country. Of course, every now and then it fails, and thus we had Governor Stacey Abrams. Remember her?
Right.
I don't think she spent a day in solitary for questioning the integrity of our elections.
Great gal. I'm really
Yeah,
just
isn't
a great American model, like all of these.
she's not a gal, she's a whole tribe of them.
several gallons.
Yeah, it is, the first case that we know of is a medical marvel of an Australian water tank transplanted into somebody's ass.
An Australian, though.
Yeah, Australian, big mother tank. A regular water tank, well, that's Mushel.
Oh, Saul, you wearing your yarmulke tonight? What are you? See, Saul's being militantly Jewish since October 7th.
Ich bin Id. I am, and you said it right, since October 7th, I'm militantly Jewish. And I believe, and I'm going to make the pitch again since you give me the opportunity, everybody and their mothers, I don't care if you are Jew, Waker, Catholic, I don't give a damn. Wear a yarmulke. You see? If they come for the Jews, we're all Jews. And until this is over, it is our moral obligation to take the moral side. Period.
That's why we're here. To have, to try to flesh out these issues and for people who want to listen and know that there are people who are up to discussing, validating the way they feel. And, I was talking to somebody who has a very big following on Instagram today, who took me out to lunch in New York. And Jason, Brooklyn Patriot, real Brooklyn Patriot. And we were saying how most people I was talking about how I have subscriptions now, and I have 40 subscribers or something on Twitter. It's very nice. I appreciate them.
Oh, thanks.
And one of the things I said is, I thought one of the things I would offer to subscribers is, hey, you'll have access to me. You've indicated interest in what I have to say. We can chat. We can, you have questions on videos that I put up and stuff, and because you're a subscriber, I will give you special, I tend to be pretty generous with answering. And virtually no one has taken me up on it, because most people really don't really want to participate. But they do want to be, and this is something Rush Limbaugh used to say all the time, people want to feel validated. They want to know that someone who does have that strange genetic interest that you and I do of wanting to talk and wanting to be heard, that someone is out there saying, no, you're not crazy. It's the rest of the world that's crazy. You're right. You're right. Thank God we're here and we can have it. And, things that we never expected that would happen are happening. Some of them are awful. Some of them are amazingly good. We often tend to take the good for granted. I thank you very much for inviting me to join you tonight. And moving this to a little bit earlier, you're a night owl, but I'm an aged man. I can't stay up all night doing this kind of thing.
I'm older than you.
I know.
I'm older than you. I was already in jail where you were trying to get an ice cream cone at the Dairy Queen.
I used to work at the Carvel, actually.
Oh, Carvel, yes. I remember the cakes. Because I didn't tell you last time, but I did live in Bergen County for a while.
Oh, really?
Very near Kinderkamak Road, which probably goes by your neighborhood.
So Clifton, I am just a stone's throw away. There are a lot of businesses around here called Tri-County because we're very close to the intersection of Bergen and Essex and Passaic.
Yes.
Truly exciting banter here, folks. I'm sure that you really are appreciating these New Jersey Passaic River oriented moments. But I am going
Yes.
to bail on you.
Okay. I'm going to stay for another 20 minutes answering questions.
Yeah,
Uh,
and now you can speak more. I think more frankly, and people, where
there
did you
is,
get this
well,
guy, Saul?
I always speak frankly.
Yeah, you do.
I'm a strong believer, and it's better to come in with a green face than leave with a red one.
Master of metaphors. I don't know what the hell he's talking about, folks.
I'd rather make you upset when I come in than be ashamed when I leave for not having brought up the
Not
point.
having, yes. No, listen, got it. As we say in Yiddish, tuch a soifen tish. Sit on the table.
Leave my tuchens alone.
Oh, I promise you. I promise you. No interest. And on that note,
Yes.
I'm going to get my tuchus out of here. And wish you a good Shabbos. And thanks again for having me on. And we'll talk again soon, as we always do.
A good Shabbos to you, and we'll be in touch. Thank you, my friend,
everybody.
and I'll stay for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, you don't bail on just because if you lose the feed from me, catch it on Saul.
Yeah. One thing, by the way, that you can try with your subscriptions. I have something where I actually bring people on camera. And not a lot of people will take up on that, but it's very interesting, the conversations that ensue.
Well,
when they finally break the shyness barrier.
I am going to have to see if anyone will go for that.
Yep.
All right, good.
Okie doke.
Buenas noches.
Thank you, my friend. A good Shabbat to you. And then there was one. Okay, folks, let me see. We're going to try and get into the question and answer now and see if you have something else you'd like to discuss that we haven't. Liberals trust bumper sticker slogans. Yeah, well, that's about the only language they speak, Kelly. Truth is not subjective. And it can sometimes be very ugly. Absolutely, Joanne. Truth is objective. Whether we can approach truth in any significant manner is a different question. Some of us spend all our life trying to decipher it with various degrees of success. But it is objective. It is what it is, and whether we like it or not, it doesn't change. And yes, it is sometimes very ugly, but I'd rather know the ugly truth than live in darkness. Is Biden going to hit Iran hard? Biden, I'm afraid, it's been many years since he was able to hit anything, even Jill, hard. Whatever he does is going to be limp. He's going to throw a couple of bombs here and there, pat himself in the back, claim victory, and release a statement, and that'll be it until the Iranians do something else. Oh, crap, says Joanne. Now I don't remember what I was going to ask. Welcome to the club, my dear. I seriously doubt it. I see that most of you like the convos. Now, let me see what I have here. Every day, start a cult like Joe Neerman. Yeah, not a bad idea. I'll have the Church of the Holy Spaghetti, where we can worship pasta and have conversations. How about that? I hate it when people say my truth, says Sita. Yes, I do too. There is no such thing. What else do I have here? I remember getting home at midnight and going on X to say what was happening that October 7th. I've not been that horrified since 9/11. Israel is an ally that has stood firmly with America. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. The thing about this, though, goes beyond Israel. Something that I explained on October 7th when I started wearing a yarmulke. A few years ago, these camel hampers killed 3 or 4, was it, cartoon designers in a weekly magazine in France nobody had heard of before, called the Charlie Hebdomadaire, or Charlie. Immediately there was a response around the world, and everybody was putting on bumper stickers saying, marching in the streets of Paris or New York, Je suis Charlie. We are Charlie. At 9/11, there was a fear that never materialized because American people are not like that. That Americans would lash out at the Muslim communities. And other than one crazy motherfucker who killed, of all things, a sheik because he wore a turban too, there was no such backlash. But the women of Washington, D.C. joined a movement whereby all of them wore a hijab. So that if you're looking for a Muslim woman, you're going to find that all women wear a hijab. Well, when 1,200 Jews were murdered and 5,000 wounded, nobody came out saying, I'm a Jew too. Nobody came out saying, if you're coming for the Jews, you're coming for me too. And that's why I did what I did. When I posted it in X, they actually limited my account. Go figure. And I am going to be wearing this until the war in Gaza is over. For as long as we have anti-Semitic demonstrations in the U.S., these people are going to find me wearing a yarmulke. You want to come for the Jews? Start with me, asshole. And I think that everybody should do so. They're not expensive. They're very easy to buy. You can buy one on Amazon. There are cheaper ones that Jews use for, like bar mitzvahs or weddings, and they put a bunch of them so that anybody who doesn't have one or forgot theirs can grab one. They're worth about $1.50. Spend $1.50 and put on a yarmulke. It is your statement against hatred, as it is mine. And when Ron kind of laughed a little bit is when I said, Ich bin Id, which is Yiddish for I am a Jew. And thank you, Domino. Appreciate your $5. And please remember, people on the YouTube chat, don't put money in there. YouTube takes 45%. Click on the link, come to Odysee and do it over here. Odysee takes 5%. Joanne, it used to be that those with Christian beliefs were considered normal mainstream, but that is rapidly changing. Yes, it's true. As a matter of fact, to be a good Christian was synonym with being a good person. Not anymore, Joanna, I'm afraid. Christian persecution is starting to percolate along with anti-Semitism. Lagging, I should say, lagging, but yeah, it's coming too. So Ilhan Omar removed from Foreign Affairs Committee. She should be removed from Congress. She should be removed from Congress. And by the way, she was removed from the Foreign Affairs Committee quite some time ago. And she still has 2 more committees that she needs to be removed from. We cannot have a U.S. representative going out there and saying that as long as I am on the inside, Somalia's interests will be protected. She's not there to protect Somalia's interests. She's there to protect the interests of Minnesota 5 and to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And she's not supposed to have allegiance to any other foreign country, power, potentate, or prince. And if she does, she doesn't belong in Congress. Now, it's not so easy to kick her out, but I think she's earned it. Those of you who have followed me for a while know that I don't say this lightly. And more often than not, I will tell you, well, he's as good a representative as you're going to get from that district. And as long as he or she represent that district well, it's up to them. But her words are a violation of his oath, of her oath upon taking office in Congress, and cannot be tolerated. I'm sorry. Omar is a Benedict Arnold. No, Benedict Arnold was far better character than this cow. Even Washington understood that. A traitor, yes. He was passed off for a promotion, got his panties in a wad, and decided that they didn't want him, so he switched sides. But he was as much a Brit as he was an American. And he was not duplicitous about it. He didn't stay in Washington's army to do the bidding of the British general. Okay, we have 3 more comments on the other side. Yay. Whatever. Late to the live stream and enjoying it as I walk the Fido, says one. Well, I hope the Fido and you have a positive encounter with the sidewalk. There's some dude who's going to go after anyone on my street that I'm not going to stop and ask before I protect my neighbors. Yeah, well, very nice of you, sir. I hope you are my neighbor too. Any questions? Because this is, after the conversation we had with Ron, I know that many questions were answered, but the purpose of these last minutes here are to answer questions. Damn, Saul, are you reading YouTube comments? I actually read one. Sue me. And by the way, I'm done with that. Just remember, it was Ron who got me to do it. Damn you, Ron. You got me to read it. Because he posted in YouBoobe, you see. And if you guys don't post in Odysee? What do you want me to do? Almost joined last QM, but I got power outage, says Van Dien. Damn those communists in Vietnam. They should restore your power first so you can join us. I'm going to have to talk to Chairman, whoever her name is. What's the time? Come on, guys. We still have a few minutes to go. And please remember, all of this is free to view, but not free to produce, not free to run. So please, drop a buck or two. We're not asking for much. Just buy us a cup of coffee. If enough people do, we can run this with no problem. Let me see. And just to be on the sure side, pick. Any trash you've thrown out this week, Saul? No, quite a few. I haven't had to throw trash out in SQV for a while. Very happy about that. I usually catch the Russian trolls and the Indian spammers before they get in. Every now and then one will do. But no, I've been blocking the living shit out of it. One of these days I'm going to go to Twitter and there's not going to be anything I can read because I blocked everybody. There are two more that I'm of a mind to kick out today. Will Biden sign the latest pending bill? Yeah. He needs to. If he doesn't sign, he's the guy who closed the government down. So he will. The question is getting it through the Senate. Once the Senate approves it, he will sign it. Lloyd Austin is sorry, says Poser Index. No. That's poorly written. Lloyd Austin is a sorry-ass loser. He's not sorry. He's a sorry son of a bitch. God, I so despise the man. We owe the precipitous withdrawal from Iraq and Afghanistan to that moron. And we'll be paying for generations to come. We're paying now. And we're going to have to go back. You see, there is something that people don't understand. When somebody says, if we don't support Ukraine, our sons and daughters will be fighting the Russians. That's not a threat. That is not a curse. That is a statement of fact. Now, fortunately for us, the Ukrainians so far are doing fine, and today they got another 50 billion from the European community. So much about the European community not doing their part. And they sunk another Russian battleship in the Black Sea. Funny. Ukraine is a country without a navy, and they've already sunk 20% of the Black Sea fleet. It's going to be interesting. But the statement remains true. If we don't help Ukraine kick the Russians out of their territory, our sons and daughters will be fighting the Russia in Poland before we can say what the fuck. The Leicester Holt News Hour seems to have interviews with Michigan Arabs who are just heartbroken that Biden is supporting Israel, and it makes me sick. First of all, who gives a flying crap? I really don't care. And I don't care about the feelings of a few misinformed people, which is not limited to Michigan Arabs. If you interview New York socialists of English and German ancestry, you're going to get the same shit. Had the predicted recession disappeared? No, we're in it. Depending on what we do, it's going to get worse in a couple of months. There is already a friend of mine had to fix his van under warranty, mind you, a 3-month-old car. And at the dealership, they told him that the parts are not available, that they don't expect to receive them. And by the way, this is a GM car. They don't expect to receive these parts for 4 months. So they gave him a loaner, which he has to renew every week for 4 months until they get the goddamn part. And this is like the tip of the iceberg, because I told you, once the Houthis succeeded in closing Bab el-Mandeb and sent all of those ships around the Cape of Good Hope, thereby delaying the arrival of merchandise, including parts and raw materials, from Southeast Asia to Europe, and sending freights 300% up. And then, of course, this part is probably manufactured in Germany, but the Germans are not getting the raw materials that they need. So the supply lines are beginning to suffer in the US now. And if you're unlucky enough to have a GM car with a peculiar transmission problem, you may have to wait 4 months and pay twice as much for the damn thing to be fixed. So yeah, we're already in it. Debt is up. Credit card debt is up. Retirement accounts is down. People are not feeling rich anymore. Housing starts are down. House resales are down. It's already slowing down. Open your eyes. What I can tell you is that all things being equal, just about September, things may begin to improve. Donations here are down by people who apologize and send me notes. I'm sorry I couldn't, but I promise as soon as things get better, I will, which tells me all I need to know. I have a thermometer up America's ass with this thing. The MSM didn't consider it noteworthy. I'm so pissed off that the legacy media have such a chokehold on mainstream communications. What the hell did the police in New York City had a demonstration this evening objecting to the illegals who beat up the 2 officers being set free. No, that didn't make, well, it did make the news, and that's how you know it, and I did see it. How about that, though? How about that? A pack of beasts beat up 2 cops. They are arrested eventually, and then they're released without bail. God. What is it, open season on New York cops? Are these people insane? Are we going back to the 60s when it was open season on pigs? Is the involution of these retarded Democrats so complete that we're now back to No cop being safe in the streets of New York? These people are illegal in this country. There is no guarantee they'll show up for trial. Why the fuck are they set free? We're going to have to wait for cops to die before some idiots wake up. It is insane. And insanity never ends well. Now, the abuses of the 70s led to Ronald Reagan. These abuses will lead to a market swing to the right eventually. The sooner the better, if you ask me. Chicago public schools are going to start late in the fall because of the Democratic convention. Good. For all the good they do, they could start late in the winter and nobody would give a shit. I wonder if we're going to have a repeat of the 68 convention. It's entirely possible, you know. But beautiful to see police demonstrations. I don't like police demonstrations. They shouldn't have to. And it's not replacing the others, you know. How much do you think, says Stephen, the latest cop freed beasts fiasco will move the election needle to the right in New York? Not at all. It's not going to move the needle a fraction of a millimeter. Nothing. The few people who are going to vote for Trump in New York are already decided. The rest won't do it. If this shit were to happen every day. Not at all. Don't look for a silver lining there. And if you want to know where it ends, take a look at the 60s. It ends in a long period of misgovernment. It ends with the mismanagement of New York, bringing them to the brink of bankruptcy again. It ends with people abandoning the city of New York. And everybody who can goes to the suburbs and leaves the city at the mercy of the riffraff. It leads to, I don't know, maybe a Bernard Goetz trying to do justice by his own hand. It leads to some deranged lunatic creating a paramilitary organization to patrol the subways. Oh shit, all of that already happened before. So it leads to all of that. I don't want it to happen, but I have a feeling it will happen. Oh, hold on. I need to. Oh, all of these things, all of these comments that I was reading were really on Ron's. Never vote to raise taxes. Ha ha ha. Like it's gonna happen. Oh God. I had to look at the YouBoobe Anyway, Deb, the Guardian Angels are back on the streets. No shit, Sherlock. Does that make me happy? No. But, the opportunity is there. Biden says he wants to close the border now. Worse. Biden is being the duplicitous son of a bitch he's always been. And that means that he's now saying, if you give me what I want, I close the border in 24 hours. You mean you can, you son of a bitch? By the way, until yesterday, you were telling everybody and their mothers that the border was closed. Make up your mind, you senile cretin. Somebody was saying in Ron's in Rhodes' YouTube channel that Saul abused his mastodon powers. The power. We don't have a site in Mastodon, you fucking imbecile. It's quadverum.com. Social.quadverum.com. It's not a Mastodon send, it's not a Mastodon anything. We use the same open source that Truth uses. We use the same open source that is now about to become Twitter Pro. And the software is Mastodon. And no, I haven't abused shit. I told you from the very beginning, no trolls, no bots, no harassment, no conspiracy theories. If you cannot live by those rules, get the fuck out. And if you don't get the fuck out voluntarily, I'll kick you out. You will find no ads, no spam, no trolls, no harassers, no Russians, no Indian spammers. In socialquadverum.com. And that is not abusing anything. It is my house. I open it to you guys to enjoy by my rules. If you want to contribute to its upkeep, I thank you profusely. But I won't force you to pay anything. If you cannot live with that, stay in fucking Twitter. What the fuck do you care what we do? But if you want a place free from ads, trolls, bots, spammers, conspiracy theorists, and general asshats, you're more than welcome. Fuck Joe Biden, says Donita, and thank you, Donita, for your donation there. And since you put it that way, then I guess I'm going to invite others to do the same. Dick Durbin. Do you mean Durban? Durban's a Dick Durbin, I don't know. Called the social media giants killers. You must be shaking them down for campaign funds. Yeah, probably. Apparently, whatever amount Zuckerberg is giving them this season is not enough. Oh. Mariah from North Carolina, Social Quad Verum, an excellent sandbox. Saul clears the shit. Thank you, Maria, and I'm glad you enjoy it. Hi, everybody. Just made jillions in Bitcoin. If you want to see my PP, just check out, which is some of the kind of shit you will find in social media, but not in Quad Verum, because where I get them, I blast them. Fuck Joe Biden, says Maria. Thank you so much, Maria, for your contribution. PP go for that much? Yes, you'd be surprised. And what else do I have here? Somebody suggesting we should get a blue pill sponsorship. Maybe you need a blue pill, baby, but you're gonna have to buy it someplace else. Are you Quad Verum TV in Odysee? Yes, I am. And at in the description of the YouTube show, you have the link to our Quad Verum TV in Odysee, and we welcome you as well over there. For those of us who are watching us in Odysee for the first time, this is where I tell you, click on subscribe and notifications, and if you can and find it within the boundaries of your pockets and your heart, join with a membership and help us continue the work that we're doing here. Same thing with SQV, and this is the link for SQV. You can always make a contribution there, both for the social media site and for the channels, and we appreciate it very much. And that's it for the shameless asking for moolah. It's the first of the month, so what the heck. I hope we have a better month than January, by the way. The winter is sending people into paroxysms of pain every time they get the fuel bill. That's another thing. That's the last thing I'm going to talk about today. No, people. The seas are not rising. Forests are thriving. John D. Rockefeller saved the whales with kerosene. Oil is good and you're wearing it. CO2 levels are at historical lows. And I mean historical lows, 0.04% in the atmosphere, which is among the lowest it's been since the Earth was covered by water. What has happened in the 30 years they've been threatening you with the end of the world was the end of your pocket. You're paying for electricity, for heating oil, for gas, for your cars, for gas for your stoves and for your clothes dryers. Twice as much as you should be paying. Call it a moron tax, a tax on morons. You're paying thousands of dollars every year. And more if you happen to buy a car and you pay twice for the car what you would otherwise. And all of this is because of regulations to force you to consume less, as if that was a virtue. Number one, it isn't. Number two, sometimes it's fucking impossible because you need wheels to go to work. You need to keep your ass warm. You need to keep your ass cold in the summer. You need to have your freezer working and your water pump. You have no choice. So if you are like most people You're overpaying somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 a year as the fool's tax. You're paying more for your groceries. You're paying more for your clothing. What the farmers are doing in Europe is direct response to the insane climate regulation that the European Parliament is imposed upon them. We will soon see that in America, where the pressure is not nearly as bad, but it's going that way. Imagine governments that put a lid on the amount of energy the country can produce, put a limit on the amount of food we can produce, and raise the prices of our food and our energy in consequence. While the Chinese produce 90% of the CO2 that goes up into the atmosphere, and that is nothing compared to a couple of volcanic eruptions. You're being had. You're being exploited miserably by a band of criminals who are fleecing you to put that money in the form of subsidies into those who enable them and keep them in power through their contributions to their campaigns. This is thievery. They are robbing you blind. And it's about time you open your eyes and figure it out. Joanne says that razor wire around the White House is okay. I would frankly build a wall all around and then fill it with water. Make the largest fucking public swimming pool in the world. The most greening on Earth now, see NASA, is regional, not global. And India and China, with many coal-fired plants, are leading the way with plant food they're releasing in their local atmospheres, where we are not doing our part. Actually, the Amazon is done pretty fucking good. So, yeah. Deb, 0.04% of the atmosphere. If it were to increase by 25%, it would be 0.05, and nobody would fucking notice. And it would still be among the lowest levels in the history of this planet. And I think only 3% of the 0.04 is produced by humans. Even lower amount, actually. So, now that we have done this, and we have reached our time limit, I'd like to thank those of you who sent us a coin, those of you who will when we go on demand. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll see you, Saturday night, 11 p.m. Eastern, with Thomas Victor, Beard Blather, and then Sunday with Quad Meat, Tuesday with VIP, and Thursday we start all over again. So you guys have a good night. If you're a Jew, a good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom would be in Hebrew. A good Shabbos is in Yiddish. And I'll see you Saturday night. Take care, everybody. I'm Israel Chai. And if you don't like it, well, you know what you can do. Good night, folks.